Welcome back to Digital Design School, and this is week 3 of the course, and it's typography. Today we're going to go through different elements of typography. Going to get you learning about anatomy of type, type spacing, and 10 golden rules of type. Also going to give you a bit of homework, and the project for this week, the main project, it's going to be to create your own landing page design using the content that we've learned today. No images, type only, so that'll make it a bit more difficult, but also it'll make it more interesting. And the idea is, by just using type and playing around with what you're learning today, you're going to be able to just come up with your own design and use type almost as image. I've done a design for this class, and I will let you see it just quickly to give you an idea of what I mean. So this is the design for today's lesson, and it's just a quick landing page I've come up with, going through the different areas of typography. So you've got your landing page here, your hero area. Let me just lock that because it's getting on my nerves. So you've got your landing page area here, and that's the anatomy of type. You're going to be learning about this today. Categories of type. Here I've used type as image, so my images are actually blown up bits of text using serifs as examples. So there's no actual images on this page, but I've used type as image, and that's what I want you to do. And also playing out with different layouts. See, now you can create harmony and balance, hierarchy, just using weights and layout. You've got type setting again, type as image, different ways how to set the type, different elements of setting type, more type of image, showing you about kerning here, a bit more info, and then the golden rules, 10 golden rules that I think that if you learn these off by heart and implement them every time you go through and do a design, you should be good to go. Okay, so that's the web page layout that I'm going to take you through today. Going back quickly to the homework and the stuff for today. So the plan for this week, I want you to research and experiment with typography. I want you to do 20 experiments in setting type. So we'll go through a bit of type setting today, and then I just want you to mess around using headlines and body text in setting type in 20 different ways, just using size and weight and space. And then I want you to jump onto Google and find 5 classic typography posters, and literally all you need to do is type into Google classic typography posters and you'll come up with a million search results. So find 5 that you like and just try to recreate them in Sketch or whatever program you're using to do your designing. The idea of that, it's not a dissection, but it's just to let you get used to seeing what you can do with type and how you can use it to make a page look nice and legible without even needing an image. So it's just to give you a little idea, a taste of what you can do. And then I've got a really cool link to show you, and it's a game for kerning. Kerning is the space between 2 individual characters or glyphs, and this game is a really good way of getting used to kerning, and really fun. You'll probably end up spending ages on it, a lot longer than you should. Even myself, when I was looking for it to add it to this list, I ended up playing it for about an hour and getting carried away and procrastinating on it. Anyway, so I'll show you that in a minute. Your brief here we've gone through, it's to create a landing page for yourself, just using the info that you're going to use today, just something that you can create, design, and then go back through looking at it later on when you're practicing or trying to memorize your fundamental rules of typography. What we're studying today: anatomy of type, spacing type, and the rules of type. And here's a link to a website that's got a lot more in-depth typography on there as well. So we're going to do the anatomy of type today, which is a massive subject. It's not that massive, but it's a big enough subject on its own. I'm just going to show you a bit. If you want to go into it heavier, you can, and you'll find a lot more info on this website here. And the plan for this week, you do 20 experiments setting type. You're going to do one master copy for each poster, and then your 5 dissections, one every day as normal, just choosing websites that you like, and then doing your web page layout. And then if you've got any time left at the end of the day when you're all tired out from doing lots of type practice, I've got some reading for you. So if you're on the way to work on the tube, or if you're sitting on the toilet instead of looking at Facebook, you can have a read of these, or before you go to bed. These 3 are real famous classic designers, and they've got loads and loads of golden nuggets that they can share with you. So just read about these, learn about the old masters of typography, and apart from being really interesting, you'll learn some really cool stuff off those as well. Finally, I've got a few links here for you, and these are links that I think you'll find probably useful almost on a day-to-day basis. I use at least these 2 every day, if not these 3, and I'll just run through these quickly with you now. So the first one, typescale.com. When you're choosing fonts, when you're choosing sizes for your fonts, so when you're about to start doing your design and you're thinking, all right, what size shall I make my headlines and my subheadings? What size shall I make my body text? It's not good to just pull random numbers out of the air. So you might say, all right, I'm going to have 14 for my body text. I know 53 for my subtitles and 91 for my main heading titles. So that's just a bunch of numbers I pulled out my butt that have got no proportional scale or no relative meaning to anything else on the website I'm doing. So it's not going to really fit well together. It's just going to be disharmonious. Your best bet is to find type scales, and this tool here is a fantastic tool for getting these type scales. Now you can create your own type scales. You can literally just decide, I'm going to base this whole website on the number 10. And everything you do would be multiples of 10. So your spacing might be 10 pixels between tertiary text, 20 pixels between the body text and tertiary text, and between every headline and every body text, it'd be 30 pixels of text space. And then your actual type sizes could be 10 pixels for tertiary text, 20 pixels for body text, 30 pixels for headlines. So everything will be working on a scale of 10. By the way, that's not a great scale that I've just told you. It's just a random example. Anyway, but this is a list of scales that are proven through the years by great artists or mathematicians that these are naturally pleasing to the eye. These are probably the 4 scales that I use the most. We spoke about the golden section in the fundamentals video. That is a naturally pleasing scale to the eye. Perfect fifth, I like that, and also the augmented and perfect fourth, I think, are great scales as well. Anyway, so a standard size on the web for body copy or body text is 16 pixels. Easy for optimal reading and just comfortable. For my website design today, I used 18, pretty much because my eyes are old and I'm tired, so I like a bit bigger. But they say 16 is optimal reading. You can go bigger or smaller, but not too much smaller. It's up to you. But for the sake of this, 16 is the size that you're going to use for your body size. So I've decided 16 pixels for my body size. I'll put that in that box there. And then I'm going to think of the scale that I want to use. So try these all out, see what you like. You'll probably find one that you prefer over the other, and you'll stick to that eventually on a lot of your designs. But come up with your own scales or try these ones out. So for the sake of this, I'm going to use augmented fourth. Google Fonts, you can just choose a nice font that you want to have. I'll just leave it on Poppins for now and weight regular. You can put your own text in here, or you can just leave it as it is. Anyway, so I've done all that now, and now I've been given a nice scale. So here you can see that's my body text. And then I've got a list of different sizes that I could use for headlines, subheadings, and tertiary text or captions type things. So for scale, we like contrast. So I would probably say, all right, I'll use 16 for my body text. I use 31 for my subheadings. Quick tip, don't use odd numbers. 31.99 is a silly number to use. So you'd use 32 or 31, but just round it up. Don't use odd numbers. So don't even use 31, because if you divided that by 2, that would be now a funny number, 16.5. You don't want half pixels. So 32. And maybe my headline would be 63.96, so 64. So I'd have 16 pixel body, 32 pixel subheadings, and 64 for my H1 titles. And now I've got a nice proportionally scaled, visually pleasing scale. Easy as that. Also, you can just slide that across and you can type your own stuff in here. So this is a lovely test. So if I have my own headlines or my own type, I could just put that there, put it in there, a bit of body text. Now I can see, all right, that heading, I like the way that looks with that. That's a good size. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to stick with it. And you can see the different size. So that'd be the subheading with the text, big heading with body text. So you can see how it looks. So it's a great website. So I use that all the time just for getting great scales. All right, the next one, Google Fonts. Probably most people know about this, but when you're designing for the web, you probably want to try to stick to Google Fonts as much as possible, because Google practically owns the internet, so you're not going to have a lot of trouble when it comes to people finding Google Fonts. So your developer will also love you if you use Google Fonts, and your boss will love you if you use Google Fonts as well, because they're all free. If you go off and start choosing Gill Sans or Helvetica or expensive fonts, that means you're going to have to pay loads of money to buy the fonts, and your boss will probably want to kill you when you could have got a free one from Google. So I say try to stick to Google Fonts. If you really can't find it, or if money is not a problem, go off and find something else. But at the beginning, I say try and stick with Google Fonts, because it makes it easier for you, your boss, your developers, and everyone looking on your website will be able to use see the Google Fonts in use. Anyway, so you would find your fonts, go through, have a good look through. When you find a font that you like, so, oh, that's a nice font, I like that, I'm going to download it. You click the plus icon, you can choose more. You could do Oswald as well. And then here you can see, if I go to customize, Oswald and Source Sans Pro. And then probably you want to choose the different weights. So this Oswald, this is called a type family. So a typeface Oswald is the typeface, and the family is all the different weights in that family. So you want to select all of those, and now you can download that and install Oswald with all the different family weights on your computer for free. So now you've got a nice set of fonts. So Google Fonts, great website for getting free fonts, and it's really useful for everybody. When it comes to pairing fonts, so we spoke about creating contrast in your designs in the fundamentals, and you can do that. One way of doing that is using contrasting fonts. So you could have a serif heading with a sans-serif body, or the other way around, and that would be contrasting fonts. This website here lets you, it generates by deciding how balanced, how similar, or how contrasting you want these font pairs to be. So you could have a high contrast, balanced contrast, or very similar contrast. I think it's a good website, and it's easy just for so it's a great website for finding contrasting fonts. I would say when you start designing, you probably don't want to use more than one font in your designs. Your best bet would be to use something like a font family like Roboto or Oswald. Something that it's one font, but it's got a lot of different weights. It's got thin, light. So what do we say? Oswald here. It's got extra light, light, regular, medium, semi-bold and bold. So you've got, what's that, 6 weights to play with. So you can create contrast using the same font family, but just going through using different weights. You could have regular for the body and bold for the headline, and maybe extra light for for quotes or something like that. You've got a lot of contrast between these different weights. Once you start becoming a bit more confident in your design and getting used to using fonts, then start using contrasting fonts. And I would say don't go past 2 fonts, even for advanced users. Use as many as you want, but it's not the best practice. But stick to 2 or 3 different fonts maximum on a design. Otherwise, it's going to just end up looking like a big mess. When you're choosing fonts, really you want to try and think about the way the font looks and if it's saying what you're trying to say on your website. So if you were doing a website for I don't know, a nursery or something like that, you probably wouldn't want to use these kind of fonts. They look a little bit serious. So when you're choosing what fonts to use in your design, you want to take into consideration first readability. That's almost the number one thing you need to think about when you're doing typography. Readability, because the idea of type is someone has to read it. So you want it to be readable no matter what. But also every single type face has got its own personality. So when you're designing for certain websites, a surfing website, a skateboard shop, a bank, they look very different to each other. You wouldn't want to use the same font on a bank as you would a surfing company. They're 2 very different things. Or a nursery and a graffiti site, they're very different things. So you need to take into consideration the personality of that font that you're choosing. So this website is a great website, but it's probably not the best way to start doing typography, because you want to browse through all these different fonts. When you're doing your website, that would work better for a playful website than a bank. You wouldn't use that on a bank, but you might use it on a nursery or a play centre. For a bank, you might go something a bit more serious like that. So take into consideration that could be for a coding or a finance type website. You want to think about the personality. So when you're choosing your fonts, go through. Once you start building up your font library, you'll be able to recognise fonts, or you'll know straight off, all right, that font would work well for my website. But at the beginning, just scroll through Google, spend your time and just look at the different fonts and try to think, does that personality, does that fit what I'm trying to say? So I'm doing a website for, I don't know, an old people's home. Does that fit what I want to say? So for an old people's home, you probably want something that's very easy to read, that is very legible, but it's not too playful. You want something quite serious. It's going to be older people looking at that. Don't ask me why I used an old people's home as an example. It was the first thing that came to me. Anyway, so take into consideration that would be a good font for an old people's home or a bank, would it? You wouldn't use that. But you could use it for a gym or a cafe or something a bit more playful even. So take into consideration when you're choosing your fonts. So I've gone on to a big rant just to say this is a good website, but it's probably best not just grabbing any old font from this. Try to think, if you do use this for generating combinations, if the font works with what you're trying to say. So how does this website work? You choose your balance. So let's have a balance high contrast. You generate, and it'll give me high contrast info. So I might think, all right, that looks pretty cool. I like that. I'm going to lock that. Poly, not too keen on that. But that body text looks quite cool. All right. So now I've locked these 2, so I'm going to keep those, and I'm going to generate again for high contrasting. Fira Sands. All right, that looks quite good. I think they work well together. You decided you like them, then you can just click on that, and that'll take you off to Google to download the fonts, and then you can again download the fonts, and you've got a nice set of contrasting fonts. But again, you really want to think about making sure that this font has got the personality and says what you're trying to convey with your web design message. All right, that was a big long-winded thing. Next, let me copy and paste this for the next example. I use this every time I do a design. This is for measuring the length of your paragraph. It's not actually for doing that. It's for counting how many words you've got in your document, but I use it for measuring my paragraph length. So paragraph length, the width of your paragraph for optimal reading should be between 45 and 65 characters. If it's any less than that, it's a jerky reading, it's not very comfortable. And if it's longer than that, it starts to get a bit tiring on your eye. So optimal reading is 45 to 65 characters, and that includes spaces and punctuation. So here, if I was doing my design, once I've got my character, I would paste the first line of my paragraph in, and just make sure that it's between 45 and 65 characters. So 62, that's perfect. So then I know now I can just carry on designing. So that I use all the time. And it's a really easy way just to measure the width of your paragraph, but we'll go into the sizing of paragraphs more. So bookmark this one, and bookmark that one for sure, and probably bookmark that one. And finally, we've got the kerning game. So kerning is the space between two letters or two characters. And you won't use kerning under any text that's 26 pixels minimum. If it's 26 pixels in size or more, then you need to start going in and looking at the individual space in between the characters. Because of the different shape of the characters, the spacing becomes different. So I'll tell you how to kern later on, but this game just gets you to practice kerning. So to start off, there you go. So you can see here the space between the A and the V is very different. So you want to adjust that. So you kern by eye, and you're just trying to make the spacing consistent between everything. So if I think that looks about right, I will compare it. Let's see how I did. Not bad, 84. So you can see the perfect kerning would have been there. All right, next, let's try again. So space in here, type. That looks about good to me. Compare that. 94, not bad. So you just go through, mess around with the kerning, and this is just literally a fun way to practice kerning, and you could spend hours on this. In fact, I ended up playing with this the other day, spending hours on it just trying to play around with kerning. So not bad, 100. So just do that, play with that, and you're probably going to spend way too long on it, but it's really good fun if you just do that here and there when you're a bit bored. When you finish reading, you're reading books that I've given you to read, and you're sitting on the toilet and you've gone through all your Facebook feed, you can get this out and play around with the kerning while you're in the toilet. Really good fun. Anyway, so play with that every day. So bookmark that. Bookmark that. That one, yeah, it's a cool site. You can bookmark it if you like, but these two definitely bookmark as well. All right, onto the website.